What's up, guys? Hoping you guys had an amazing day of trading. We went 3 for 4. The one loss that we had lasted about 5 seconds. We went long right after I sold for the loss because I got faked out. It is what it is. But speaking of being faked out, Facebook had a big pop, and now in the after hours, it's falling very, very heavily. So basically, their guidance for the fourth quarter is not looking too good. They had decent ad revenue. The family apps ad revenue was also pretty good. They're at a loss for a few other things, but they are doing decent in terms of daily active users, but not a huge revenue beat. So that's probably why the market is responding the way that it is, and that's why it's falling in the after hours. But of course, the most important thing that we're going to have to look at tomorrow is the advanced GDP numbers coming out and unemployment claims. In the pre-market, this is going to come out. After hours tomorrow, Apple and Amazon will report earnings. So far, we've seen all of these large tech stocks take a beating. So it's a big possibility that Apple and Amazon will also probably take some sort of a beating as well. Wow, Facebook was at 118 a minute ago. Now it's at 115. Anyway, so the best we can do is we have to look at the dollar and the bonds. All right, so the bonds obviously are bouncing. They found support. And we know that when the bonds do well, the stock market does well. Very simply. All right, so we found support. Things are looking good. We were very, very oversold outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band. So we were extremely overextended to the downside algorithmically. So this is a nice little bounce, right? The dollar. When the dollar is weak, that is very, very good for the stock market. So the dollar is at support. This is not really that strong of a level of support, but we are now very overextended to the downside. So yes, I mean, this is an important level of support, but we could have one more day where we fall even lower. But we're going to have to see. But now we're getting really, really overextended to the downside algorithmically on the dollar. So we can either have a small bounce or we can have a continued, like an intraday move tomorrow where we stabilize a bit and then continue falling lower the next day. So we're just going to have to see how the dollar responds. But you can clearly see right now that we're trading very far outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band. The other interesting thing is that the VIX is also trading outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band. So usually when this happens, it doesn't always sustain itself. Well, we want to see for the VIX, right, for bulls, right? We want to see the VIX not really fall too heavily, because if it falls too heavily, then there's a very, very slim chance that it can continue falling. So we want it to slowly fall. Basically, that's what we're trying to look for. But of course, if the VIX is showing weakness, then that means that it's good for the stock market. Okay. So basically now we can take a look at the SPY, and my thesis for the past few days was intraday I want to be bullish, and that's been working out pretty well. And of course, we finished scalping at around 11 a.m. but every single dip was a buying opportunity, and it was just very, very simple. And we saw that because the slower MACD line crossed above the 0 line, and that basically meant that there is more upside potential. So either, like I said, either we're going to continue going higher or we're going to begin to stabilize at support. And then after that, we would need to make a decision. But overall, we were on the right side of the market for the past few days. And things worked out pretty well. And yeah, I mean, essentially we need to see if, really, honestly, everything is going to depend on tomorrow morning, and then it's going to depend on earnings out of Apple and Amazon. So it's really just gonna be that, really. We're gonna hold whatever 380.5, and literally tomorrow morning we can fall down to 378, 377. Anything can happen tomorrow morning. But let's just recap what we can look at, right? So for the IWM, for example, intraday we saw the IWM trading very overextended to the upside in terms of the Bollinger Band. And what I was saying was becomes difficult. So essentially, for the Bollinger Band trade, right? It's essentially when we're trading outside of the upper or the lower level of the Bollinger Band, usually we revert to the mean, meaning we come back to the average level, right? We come back inside the Bollinger Band. And what I was trying to say was, if we're trading outside of the upper level of the Bollinger Band, it's not as safe to try to blindly buy puts. Whereas if we're trading outside of the lower level of the Bollinger Band, in my opinion, it is much, much safer to scale into longs if we're trading outside of the lower level, as opposed to buying puts on the upper level. It's just more risky, because what we get on, basically what this is telling us is that there's a lot of institutional buying power. I don't want to try to short into institutional buying power, okay? But when we're trading outside of the lower level, that means that there's still a lot of buying power still left to enter into the market. So it makes sense to try to go long when we're trading outside of it. But overall, we can see that the IWM basically reverted back to the inside of the level, right? And clearly, you know, Microsoft had a huge red day, right? Google had a huge red day. The tech sector was basically hit the hardest, obviously, because of bad earnings, right? And the IWM did relatively the best compared to the SPY and the NASDAQ. So now basically we just need to see, basically, I mean, there's not really much else to look at. We just have to see how GDP numbers and Amazon and Apple earnings respond tomorrow. All right. Hopefully we'll get a better understanding and a better direction of what's going to happen with the market heading into Friday, and then definitely, hopefully, heading into next week. But until then, you know, the dollar is at support, very overextended to the downside. The VIX is also very overextended to the downside. But there's basically maybe like one more day where we could fall at this frequency to the downside. But that is very unlikely. But it is what it is. The bonds are showing strength. The market should, you know, if the VIX, I mean, honestly, we just have to look at what happens tomorrow. All right. And yeah, that should be it for the video. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, do all that good stuff, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Thank you.